Right, so we'll begin with our Wellness Wednesday session today. Very good evening to everyone who's joined in. This is me, Abhishek from Onsurity, your host for the evening. It's an absolute pleasure to be back, starting with another power-packed session of Wellness Wednesday with all of you. Today's guest speaker is one of the most renowned physicians and scientists that we have in Bangalore. This is Dr. Alben from Newman Health. And Dr. Alben comes with an experience of 17 years in research, and he's experienced in his practice for chronic disease management. And today's session is going to be extremely interactive, extremely educative for all of us. We're going to learn a lot of things about stress management and heart health, and how one can have a preventive healthcare in place to sort of avoid coronary heart diseases, and actually understand how health is so important when it comes to managing your stress, right? And a lot of us as employees going to work, or as students going to institutes studying, go through a lot of stressful situations or events in our day-to-day lives, and it's really important to understand what exactly is the reason behind this and how do you actually combat this, right? So doctor would be taking us through a entire presentation to explain us how this is going to be. And today we're actually going to understand why Ranchor Das Chanchar from Three Idiots used to say ki, dil pe haath rakh ke bolo ki stress nahi lena chahiye, right? So we're going to learn how all is well is so interconnected to your mental well-being, your wellness, your health, and understanding why managing your stress can really help you overcome a lot of upcoming or impending threats to your sort of lifestyle, right? So it's going to be a great session. Thank you so much, Dr. Alben, for joining us today. Over to you.
Hi, I hope all of you all can hear me very well, and thank you for this opportunity to be talking to this crowd here. And so, as I was already introduced, I'm Dr. Alben Sigamani, and I decided very long back that, rather than being a doctor for a few patients, I'd like to contribute to science by doing research which will kind of impact larger populations. And my journey has started actually way back in 2004, and this is important for the context here. Is in 2004, when we were doing clinical research or trials, we were so focused about looking after a patient who reaches the hospital. And there were a lot of things that we were trying to fix there. What happens to a patient when they reach the hospital? How do we treat them? And how do we make sure that they go back home alive? That was the focus of all the research that happened in 2004. And that actually came with the background that, till the mid 60s, I would say, or even early 70s, people really did not know how to manage chronic diseases. We had just conquered infectious diseases with an antibiotic. 2 world wars, we saw the devastation that infections were causing, so we had penicillin. And once penicillin came in and became a big hit for infections, people had just started to overcome the whole aspect of acute illnesses, but they had no clue of what to do with chronic diseases. And the entire focus was, okay, if somebody with a chronic illness reaches the hospital, how do we treat them? So my journey started with the first study where we looked at across India. We recruited nearly 20,000 patients, and we just wanted to see how patients were presenting to a hospital with a heart attack. And mind you, at that point in time, I'm talking about in 1990s, before I started my journey, people never thought heart disease was a problem in India. To tell the fact that people, even the government, never even bothered to have a program for things. They only had programs for tuberculosis, for leprosy, and then they realized, maternal and child health is important. So vaccinations, again, infectious diseases, vaccinations. but they never even bothered to look at heart because they thought, we are a developing country, we are a poor country, and all heart diseases happens only in rich countries. And so there was a gentleman by name Dr. Prem Pias, who was my former dean at St. John's, and he did a very simple study. He just looked at patients who were coming to the hospital at St. John's Medical College Hospital with a heart attack. And by the time we knew how to, identify a heart attack, and so we were looking at patients who had heart attack, and he compared a similar age person, male or female, who did not have a heart attack. And we realized that there was some clearly evident risk factor behavior that was there in this population of patients who had a heart attack, and compared to people who did not have a heart attack. And so that went on to become a very large study which involved nearly 52 countries across the world, and it's called the Interheart Study. Interheart was the first study which looked at risk factors which caused a heart attack. Now, we identified some of the key factors that caused a heart attack, and I think in today's world, because of technology, with the kind of information that we are exposed to, people will relate to these risk factors quite easily. But at that time, it was a revelation that people having high blood pressure, people having uncontrolled blood sugars, people having poor physical activity or not performing physical activity, and tobacco consumption in any format. Okay, but there was a fifth element which was kind of creating a bit of a noise in the whole aspect. And at that point in time, they really did not know how to define it, and they just put it as stress. Okay, so they just called it mental stress or anything that is bothering the person. But then when the Interheart study completed, they did not stop there. So they said, let's go to find out how did these risk factors even start. Let's go find out why did these risk factors ever come to these people. So they started a study called PURE, which stands for Population Urban Rural Epidemiology. So we're looking at nearly 150,000 individuals aged from the 30 years and above, and we've been following them up for 20 years now. It's almost finished 2 decades of follow-up with them. And we started looking at, at what age does a person start developing these risk factors, and what are the factors which are causing it. And it kind of became a huge revelation that the factor called stress, which is not easily measurable. Like if you have blood pressure, you go to a doctor, he'll tie a cuff machine around you, and he will be able to tell you whether your blood pressure is normal or abnormal. Nowadays, you have home-based machines that you can even test it at home. You can check your blood sugar by just doing the, glucometer at home. Just put a pinprick, you get your blood sugar. But nobody really kind of understood where is this stress and how is the stress affecting people. But then they measured it. They measured it and saw, and they realized that even if you don't have any risk factors, okay, you don't have any risk factors, means you are eating healthy, you are exercising regularly, you are not smoking or consuming tobacco, you are having no diabetes, no hypertension, everything seems to be normal, you still carry a risk of almost 33% to develop a heart attack because of stress. And we were quite baffled by this, and not only us, globally many researchers were quite baffled by this, and they wanted to kind of understand where is the stress coming in from and what are the factors which cause stress. Now, we all sometimes relate stress to an event, okay? Like say, for example, now we have an exam tomorrow, or you are going for a job interview, or you are waiting for your results of an exam that you gave. You feel that little fear factor that little anxiety, and we think that is stress. Sometimes we look at, oh, I did not sleep because I have a job deadline to complete. We feel that is stress. But then people wanted to understand more deeper about how this is a factor, and then they came up with this whole terminology called work and home related stress. So now we started defining that there is something that is happening at workplace and there is something that is happening at the home. And if you eliminate everything else, like I told you, hypertension, blood sugar, diabetes, your lipids, everything, if you negate that out, this factor of work-related stress was still causing some problems which are not getting measured. So we all know about this. Okay, this is the American Heart Association's Life's Essential 8. So they say that if a person sleeps well, eats healthy, performs regularly physical activity, controls their blood sugar, maintains an ideal weight for their height or their age, definitely keep their cholesterols under control, checks their blood pressure and knows that their blood pressure is under control, and obviously quits or avoids active and passive. This Interheart study was another revelation that came in, is even passive smoking. You're standing with a group of friends who are smoking, or you're sitting in a room where people are smoking, even that has a harmful effect. So if you avoid. But again, if you look at all these 8 factors that you're looking at, can anybody just imagine or think what could put any of these things into an imbalance? Okay? There's one thing that can put all of these elements into imbalance. Even if you decide to carry out these life's essential things, something that can put all of this into imbalance is your work-related stress or your home-related stress. And it can just fall as a factor which is causing all of these things, or it could become a factor that these 8, if you do not follow these 8 things, you could have work-related stress. So it became in science, in scientific terminology, is what we call a confounder, a confounding agent, because a confounder is defined as something that is related to the cause and is related to the effect. So you see, like we all smoke. If somebody smokes, they know smoking causes cancer because you see it on all your thing, and people are quite aware of that. Smoking causes heart diseases. So everybody knows that there is something causing it. That's called causality. But then if you put stress, it becomes a confounder, because you could be smoking because of your stress, and you could be developing a heart disease because of stress. So stress becomes an important element, or what we call home-related stress or work-related stress becomes an important element or a confounder which can affect any of these 8 life's essentials. And the moment you have an imbalance in one or more, that was another big revelation that happened from the Interheart study. It is not 1 + 1 is equal to 2 here. Like if you have poor sleep and you're eating poor diets, it's not a factor of 2. It becomes a compounded factor. So 1 + 1 could become 3. You add good sleep, poor sleep with poor physical activity and uncontrolled blood sugars, the factor is almost 6 times. So like that, it becomes a compounded factor. So if stress affects any of these 8, which is possible for it to do, your chances of developing anything with regards to a chronic disease condition, I'm not purely labeling it as heart disease, I'm just saying anything which chronic means which you need to be taking medicines regularly or be always aware of, the chances of having something like that just goes up tremendously. So people have tried to measure stress, and they thought that at least from all the research that has been published so far, they kind of coined two terms. One is job stress. That means how stressful is your job? What kind of a job that you're doing? How stressful is that particular job? How much of strain does it put on you, your time, your resources? And that is one thing which people can measure. You can at least, you ask somebody like, how much time do you spend at work? And the person says, I have to spend 8 hours, 12 hours. It's a measurable thing. So they felt that job stress is something which we can measure. And the other thing that they started looking at was an effort and reward balance, or they call it effort reward imbalances. So as you know, your effort is something which is dependent on the demands and the obligations that you have, and also motivation. So they say you need to love your job. They say you need to enjoy working. So that's coming from your motivation. And then you have the pressures of your limited resources. And so you have demands and you have obligations that come in. So effort is a quantum of these two things. Now, reward, on the other hand, is like, they're all quantifiable things. It could be quantified in the form of your salaries, your quality of life, your position that you enjoy. And also there again, there is, a motivation level which could be or over motivation or under motivation. Now, this is not something which is going to be stable. It's like a weighing scale. It keeps shifting between the two. The more effort you put, sometimes you expect more reward, but then you get demotivated if you do not meet your expectations. Or you're rewarded more, then it starts tilting the other way, saying that, oh, I'm already earning, I've already achieved myself. So it starts bringing down your motivation and you start putting lesser effort, which again starts tilting things again backward. So it's always a balance which keeps going up and down. And the important thing here is that how much are you in control of this? So something which they brought up from all of this is the locus of control. Where does the control be? Is it in your hand or is it with somebody else? And people, and this was measured, again, like I said, the Interheart study gave us a lot of opportunity. Even in the pure study, we went to measure it, and we saw that when an individual feels that they have the locus of control in them, they can decide at any given point in time, I'll increase my job stress and I am okay with the reward I will get. I'm not going to get upset about it. I'm not going to feel stressful about that. Or if I want to increase my reward, I know how much of controlled effort I need to increase. So people who have that control of this balance of your effort and reward, they felt, the research showed, there have been research where they followed up people for a long period of time. They showed that very clearly this subset of people had very low prevalence or incidence of any of these chronic disease conditions compared to a person who was under total had no control, or the locus of control was completely external. Somebody else was deciding how much of work and how much of effort they need to be putting and how much of reward they were getting. So this was, again, from an Indian perspective, was a baffling thing to a lot of the researchers and epidemiologists. Why is it that a disease which was part of a developed country, or seen only in advanced countries where they think it's because of overnutrition and other things and all that, why did a country like India suddenly become the heart disease capital of the world, or suddenly became the diabetes capital of the world? And another important thing is we don't seem to be having that many cases of obesity. We do have, I'm not saying we don't have, but if you look at it, when you compare it with an American population or a Western population, we seem to have much lesser risk factors, but a much higher burden of the disease. We have much higher cases of hypertension, one of the largest numbers of diabetics. So, and heart disease is catching up very much. And another revelation that came is that we developed these diseases at least 2 decades earlier than the population out there. Like if an average man or a woman in the US develops a heart disease, his age would be approximately 60 to 65. But at the same time, you come to India, you start seeing this at the age of 40 to 45. So this component was a big revelation, saying that, the moment you are able to bring back locus of control, you're able to reverse a lot of these things. So this was the way they were able to measure work-related stress or job-related stress. And at the same time, it has an impact on your home-related stress, because you cannot separate the two aspects of it. So when we started looking at this, they started understanding a little more on, because see, you need to identify a person who has stress compared to a person who does not have stress. And then they started, what is it happening? What is stress doing to your body? Where is it kind of affecting you? And it was a particular research study which was published about 3 or 4 years ago. A group of scientists actually, I'm sorry if the image is not very clear. They went down deeper to find out what is happening when a person has stress, or there is an imbalance in their, ability to control stress. And very clearly, they showed that the work stress affects your health in this many ways. It increases coagulation. What do you think coagulation is? Your blood is supposed to flow freely through all your blood vessels. Now, it is because of a lot of blood cells that it sometimes slows down when you have a cut, or it clots to stop the bleeding if you ever cut your finger with a knife or something like that. So coagulation, it goes into a hyperdrive. Then there is something called as inflammation. Now, we've been hearing a lot of this word during COVID. COVID causes a lot of inflammation. Now, this has become a terminology. Now we're beginning to measure it also. They found that these patients had higher levels of inflammatory cells. They had a higher chances of maladaptive behaviors. Now, here is where I'm bringing in the component about how stress plays both on the risk side, the causing side, as well as the effect side. So when you have stress, you start adopting certain maladaptive behaviors. Like you tend to go into smoking. You start drinking excess alcohol just because you want to just get yourself free. You eat in a different style. There's something called as binge eating. You kind of gobble up your food because you have very little time, or you become very hungry and you've reached getting your meal at a particular time, and then you just gobble up. So it's a binge eating that you do. You are because of the stress, you prefer to not do physical activity because it starts putting an impact on you, and this is causing obesity, glucose intolerance, and hypertension. So you see how the risk factors which people have learned is emerging because of work-related stress. And then they also demonstrated this both in models as well as in human beings, that when you start thinking of work, they did MRI studies. Even if you start thinking of a deadline at work, your brain starts sending out signals to your body. You need not be involved in that work. Even just the thought process, your brain starts sending out these signals, and it starts increasing your heart rate. It starts increasing the production of certain hormones in your body, which are called stress-related hormones, and those are already in your blood. They kind of keep circulating out there. And then you have your endocrinological, that is your glands that are there, which starts to work around that. And it starts either affecting your thyroid, or it kind of starts affecting other organs. And all of this leads to something called as an endothelial dysfunction. Now, what is endothelium? So your blood vessels, which carries the blood, has a very smooth inner surface. It's kept very smooth, and it has an ability to dilate when there is more blood flowing. And that factor is caused by this thing called endothelium. Now, when this gets disrupted because of all these stressful factors going and hitting it, then you start developing something called as atherosclerosis, and you start, putting up those layers of fat on top of it, and that's what causes the heart disease. So people went down to this level of, research to understand why this is, could be happening. Now, my friends, I just wanted to give you this revelation, but don't think that, everything is lost. Don't feel disheartened here, okay? But I wanted to set the stage with you to understand, because sometimes they say that even if you understand the problem, you are actually half the solution is already in your hand. And sometimes, a lot of the times, is the problem when you have not understood it, is when you are not able to find a solution for yourself. Now, I think the talk today was about why it is important, or how does work-related stress affect your health condition. And I think the point I wanted to bring out here is that it's not something very straightforward. It's not something that, I can just reduce my stress, I'm going to have no health issues. No, but I showed you, that imbalance component will come into play. The moment you reduce your effort, your stress, job-related stress, you'll start having lower reward, which will again bring in back the problem. So it's about what I'm going to kind of share in the next few minutes with you is about how our body has the ability to adapt, and this is one of the reasons why we also do not feel the problems that are going on inside your body. They talk about chronic diseases, like they say hypertension and diabetes. They're all silent diseases, and it is important that you are aware of it and you are checking on those things on a regular basis. So you should look at the impact that these work-related stress aspects are having on your body on a periodic basis. Now, this is, if you take the analogy of a car, right? There is no car that is manufactured where once you buy it, you don't have to do any maintenance, right? However expensive it is, or however cheap the car is. You have to take it up for periodic maintenance. And when you, nowadays, all the latest cars, when you take it to a mechanic, what he does is he connects this car to a system, and the system does a system check. It does an entire system check, and it basically comes out with whether there are any problems that it's able to detect right now, or has there been any problems that has happened in the past, recent past at least. Now, the same kind of components is possible with us, with our own human body. Like I was talking to you about, what is the impact of the stress and all these factors that you're seeing on top. Each of these things can be measured, and there are simple blood tests that we do. And I just wanted you all to take home this one message that, see, we all go for health checkups. I think, many of your companies will give you these annual health checkups for you, for your family members. You cannot go and do it for the sake of doing it. Maybe your HR person is calling you and troubling you, so you go and get it done and you submit the report. I want you to, look at that as an opportunity to check on yourself. It's an opportunity for you to look at how much of my job, how much of my work-related stress is impacting my body. Where all is it kind of showing up inside my body? And this revelation that I wanted to give you, to show you that how these things actually slowly keep eroding into your system. The idea is for you to become a little more play a more active role when you're going for your health-related checkups. And if you go on the internet, something that you will see is a health risk score. Now, as a researcher, I can tell you that some of the limitations that we have had in research has always been that we don't get good data coming from countries like ours, like India and other places. So a lot of these health-related risk scores that you find on the internet, like you'll get Framingham risk scores, you'll get the American Heart Association's risk scores. All of those those scores are meant on some Caucasian population. And like I said, it is still based on that Interheart Study's findings. They just basically look at your age, they look at your gender, and they look at whether you have hypertension, you have diabetes. You answer to any of those things as yes, then it gives you a particular score. If you answer any of them as no, then it says you don't have risk. So it's a very static risk calculator. So what at Newman, I have helped along with the team. We have kind of come together and we have created. We have a separate risk score, which has two elements to it. One is the usual thing that you can answer those questions and understand your risk. But at the same time, you could get a blood test done. And like I said, we can guide you on measuring your blood parameters for these factors, which I've just showed you. And we calculate the risk of a combined component of these two. And so this risk score calculator, I would urge all of the people participating in today's session to access our website and do it. We're not going to charge anything. And if you have any blood test that you have done in the last 6 months, or if you have gone for an annual health checkup recently and you have those blood investigation reports lying at home, even if it's in your computer, in your email, just pull them out, scan them, and upload it on our app. We have a system of reading those reports, and what we read, we use your reports and we look at your questions, and we are able to give you an understanding of your risk. And the way we have made that risk score is to bring in the element of adaptation. So the last point I wanted to bring out here is that, see, our body adapts to any stressful activity that we put it into. For example, now you are walking on the road and suddenly a dog starts to chase you. You may not have ever run a 50-meter or a 100-meter race in your life, but on that particular moment, you will run that 100-meter dash, sometimes even faster than Usain Bolt if somebody was measuring it. So the body has an ability to adapt. And, the moment you walk into an environment, whether you're having friends there, your familiar faces there or not, you know how to kind of, make yourself adjust to that entire environment. And we are born to be social creatures, so we know how to think. So similarly, our body also, the more stress you put into it, it's not going to kind of immediately give up on you and tell you. It's not going to just break down one day and tell you, oh, everything is gone. It will keep adapting itself to that stressful environment. And you will not be able to notice it because it is covering the influence of this by giving countermeasures. Like, say, for example, the moment you have coagulation being improved, the body immediately starts sending out signals to bring down that coagulation. If you're having inflammation going on in your body, the body immediately starts sending out something called steroids to bring down the inflammation. Because, see, our body naturally produces steroids. All of us now know from COVID that steroids are used for inflammation. So our body has the ability to produce steroids to cut down on the inflammation. Your maladaptive behaviors, you have a mechanism to, like, say, for example, if you've had a binge drinking night, when you get up in the morning, you just have to rehydrate yourself, eat some good food, and you get off that hangover. Your hangover doesn't last you beyond a particular point in time because your body is able to clear out all the toxins that you have taken into your system. So, even the endocrinological aspects also, if your hormones are increasing, there are counterbalancing hormones which will come and bring it up. So the point I'm trying to say here, friends, is that sometimes when you just do a blood test, you'll see everything to be normal. Because, see, a laboratory bases their blood test based on a population average. So if you say today your blood pressure, your blood sugar is normal if it is between 70 and 100 for fasting, or 70 and 140 for a random, it's because based on a population average. But what is your normal? That will not be able to come out from that particular blood test. You need to be able to connect it with others. So I'll just give you an example now. Somebody who has a tendency to develop diabetes, and if you follow that person for some time, because the person has a tendency, there is a time, a point in his life where his blood sugar levels will be actually low. You know, if you compare it to a person who is diabetic, the moment he eats meals or eats any meal, his blood sugar will spike. But in this individual, you start seeing his blood sugar is actually dropping. And that's because the body has developed a kind of a counter mechanism, because he knows you have a maladaptive behavior of binge eating. So it has created a system. The moment you start eating, think of food, it starts producing extra insulin in your body and it tries to counter it. So at any given point in time, when you go and do a simple blood test, it sometimes can, I don't want to use the word fool you or mislead you. I just want to say that the body is demonstrating a feature of adaptation. And this feature can be looked for. And that is something which we have done in that risk score, which is kind of unique from our perspective, that we are able to kind of see where is your body compensating to give you the normal value. So if I'm seeing a normal sugar value, or I'm seeing a normal lipid value, I will also look if there's something else that is being compensated to make that normal, which is again an indicator that your body is going through a stressful thing, and you need to do something about that. Now, is there a way to get back to this life's essentials? Obviously, yes. There are enough and more resources that are available. There are a lot of, from at Newman itself, we have developed a lot of programs for it and all that, where we help you de-stress yourself. But I think even beyond all that, it is the understanding, I hope, is going to make that change in you. You need to kind of understand what goes on in your body and what happens when you are putting yourself through a particular stressful situation, and understanding whether you are in control of that stress. Like, say, for example, now, if you're going for a marathon, you are very clear that, I need to run this distance. And, there's a practice session, and then you go for that practice session, you train yourself and you prepare for that, and you go. But you're not prepared for a rise in blood pressure. You're not prepared for a rise in blood sugar. You're not prepared for, a sudden rise in your inflammatory cells, because you don't know about it. So I think if there's one takeaway message I'd like all of y'all to go home with today's talk, is that that there is a lot of these factors which are going around in our body, and our body is constantly getting exposed to these factors. And it's good practice. It's good practice that we keep a check on these things. And I would like to close this with a story. This is of a neurologist, a friend of mine, and he is he's also a technology geek. So he basically plays around with a lot of technology and develops apps and stuff like that. So last week he was doing his regular rounds, and he just felt a little funny, feeling in his jaw. And so he went to the doctor, and he thought, being a doctor, he immediately thought it could be something related to the heart. So they did a bunch of investigations on him, but everything turned out to be normal. But he was very clear, because he knows, like I said, since he develops apps and he's a bit of into AI and other things. So he basically put the entire story together, and he said, see what happened. In the last 2-3 weeks, I've been under a lot of stress. I'm not sleeping properly. And, this particular spike has happened. So he insisted on getting more tests done. And to the extent he went to do an angiogram. And behold, the angiogram revealed that he had a block sitting in one of his artery. And even the cardiologist there was kind of surprised. His friend was quite surprised, because this would have completely been missed out. So the point I'm trying to say is, your body talks to you regularly, okay? And the message that I'm trying to give here is, try to listen to your body. And at Newman, we are ready to help in whatever way, using little technology, using these risk scores, maybe giving these talks. We are ready to kind of make you listen to your body, so that you are, we cannot avoid having heart disease, okay? We might not be able to avoid having heart disease. Everybody in their lifetime will develop heart disease, because it's a machine, it's a muscle, it's an organ, it's bound to fail at some point in time. But we can definitely avoid having a heart attack, okay? And I'd like to leave you all with that thought process, that let's avoid having a heart attack, because heart attack is like an end story. There is a lot of things that is happening in your body before that, and it's good to realize that, and always remember that there are seen and unseen factors playing together. And I hope that this talk will give you that knowledge and revelation, and happy to take up any questions that are there. But at this point, I'd like to close with that particular message here.
Great. Thank you so much, Doctor. I think that was a very insightful session. A lot of us really got to know exactly the reason behind these stressors, identifying the right ways of going about and combating them. And it's just how great the session was, that you kind of managed to mention all of these by giving real life examples of what people could actually face. And I think that's what makes all of us sort of really aware now about the whole thing. So we'll quickly move on to the questions now. We have someone asking, isn't this a hereditary thing, the heart issue?
Okay, very good question. And in fact, people have investigated this. So there was a research that happened in the US, and then later on we brought that same research to India, and we looked at 53 genes in your body which were related to heart diseases, okay? And so over the years we've been identifying, and so we found 53 genes, and we measured these 53 genes, and we looked at people who had either an upregulation or a downregulation. As you know, genes work both ways. Sometimes it is upregulating itself, or sometimes it's downregulating something. So we looked at this thing, and we clearly identified that these 53 genes were able to predict somebody from having a heart disease. But the good news here is that even if you're carrying that risk, okay, you maintain the balance that I'm talking about, those 8 life essentials, and maintain a life thing, you can actually negate that risk. So it doesn't mean that because you've got some poor genes in your system that you should develop a heart disease. It's again it's a revelation. You are actually more luckier. If you've got that, you at least come. I've seen many people, the moment they realize that they have some genetic risk factor for it, they change. They stop getting themselves into those maladaptive behaviors and other things. So I'm not saying having those poor genes is a good thing. What I'm trying to say is that it doesn't mean that because you have poor genes that you don't have a choice. The choice is always in your hand. As far as chronic illnesses is concerned, the choice is always in your hands. So I would.
We have Aarti. We have Aarti asking that she's really scared whether her health will be affected if she loses her weight, and her current BMI is 27.
Okay, so Aarti, I have just two messages for you. One is the fact that you're scared. Okay, that should be addressed. Why are you scared? What are you scared of? Okay. Because there is no necessity for somebody to feel scared about something. So, second aspect of it is losing weight. Now, losing weight has a scientific approach. Okay, you will be surprised if I just tell you that just breathing can make you lose weight. This is actually a research finding. It was published in a British Medical Journal. Just breathing actually makes you lose weight, and the one of the things in that particular science they said is, see, you breathe in oxygen, right? Everybody agrees on that. We all remember our biology. We all breathe in oxygen, and we breathe out carbon dioxide. Now, carbon dioxide is CO2, so it has a carbon moiety and an oxygen. Where is the carbon coming from, right? So they actually went in and measured it, and they saw when a person loses 10 kilograms of their body weight, they're actually expelling 8.5 kilos of carbon dioxide. 8.5 kilos. So 1.5 kilos is the only thing which you're losing as fat and other things. 8.5 kilos is carbon dioxide. So basically they say, eat less, move around more, keep breathing. Okay. So the point I'm trying to say to Aarti is that there is a science about losing weight. Do not jump into one of those fad diets and try to go down that path of suddenly losing weight and all that. They're okay for people who are doing it for a purpose. Like, I know there are these film stars who suddenly put on weight or lose weight, but remember, they have a very strong scientific team working with them. That is measuring every single element of them, and they're correcting it along the way. You and me cannot follow that. So we have dietitians, we have clinical nutritionists who can help you, and you need to kind of take their advice, because the thing is, see, when you suddenly drop your weight, your bone and your muscles will suddenly start having an impact, because it's used to a particular way. Like I said, adaptation. So you need to kind of slowly bring out that adaptation. So losing weight is a good thing as long as you know why you're losing weight, and that is important. And at the same time, there's a scientific approach to doing it, and to take professional help on doing it right for you. Do not think that intermittent fasting worked for my friend, my cousin, I will also do. No, it will not. Your body is different. What your body requires, what your work-related stress requires, how your body has been adapting, all of this is important. And so if you do it the right way, there's nothing to be scared of for losing weight.
We have Abhilasha asking that she's got PCOS and thyroid, hormonal imbalance, and weight gain as an issue. Is this where weight gain could be an issue towards her coronary heart disease or something of that sort?
Okay. So thanks for asking that question, Abhilasha. I think this is an important element from a woman's perspective. I'd like to first start off with one fact point that everybody so far, like at least till about 5-7 years ago, people thought women are not at risk for developing heart diseases, and they felt that their body produces certain hormones which protects them. To an extent, it is true, but it does not eliminate them from developing heart diseases. And so in the research that went on to kind of identify what is happening, what's the changes that is happening, one thing that is come out very clearly is called as insulin resistance. Now, all the points that you mentioned there, PCOS or thyroid or hormone imbalance, the underlying factor is your imbalance of your insulin. Now, insulin, as all of us know, is a hormone that you produced the moment you even think of food. Okay, and the moment you put food in your mouth, insulin gets released into the body. Now 70% of that insulin goes to the liver, and the liver keeps it for the night, because you're not going to eat in the night, so it keeps it for the night. And it also produces glucose. Even if you do not eat glucose, you are producing glucose. So your liver produces it, and it uses this insulin to break it down. Now, what happens to people is that, we have imbalance in the way we eat at night, we binge at night. So these things is completely hampering the insulin balance. So one of the first factor to look at somebody having PCOS or thyroid or thing is to see whether there is an imbalance in your insulin levels. Because we have seen just correcting that, all these problems have disappeared. Just correcting your insulin imbalance through diet, stress management, psychological interventions, doing physical therapy, yoga, you can completely eliminate all of these. These are all just labels. Do not feel that is something which will be with you throughout. You can completely reverse these conditions. So I think the answer, Abhilasha, is that you need to first find out how much of insulin resistance is going on in your body, find out the factors which is causing that, and eliminate that. And then you will start seeing that all of these issues will disappear for you.
We have Shashi asking, due to heart medicine, I have regular digestion issue. How can I solve that?
Okay, so this is a quote from one of my colleagues. She said that in our app, and she was giving this quote, which I really like. I keep using it. Medicines are something which you can have a date with, but do not get married to it. Okay, so because all medicines have side effects, and they always weigh the risk benefit ratio. So whenever you take medicine, they will see what is the benefit it's giving, and they will allow certain risks to happen. Now, whatever Sashi is going through, a digestion issue could be because he's taking some medicines which is causing an hyper acidity or increased acid production. So Sashi, I would say you need to balance that or counter that with a dietary change. And more important than a dietary change, it is the timing of the diet. And when you're eating the medicine, what do you eat before, what do you eat afterwards? How can you control what the medicine is increasing? So you need to talk to a good dietitian, and you need to come up with a personalized diet. And when I say diet, it's not just about following a prescription. It's about developing something which will change the habits that you are living. What time do you get up? What time do you eat your first meal? What time do you put the pop in the tablet? What do you do immediately after that? All of those things have to be addressed. Then we can assure you that we will be able to eliminate that digestion issue for you.
We have Ashok asking that he is aged 70. He has a 25 BMI. He underwent an angioplasty in July, and now he started losing weight. What could be the cause of losing weight here?
So I understand your age is at 70 and you've recently undergone an angioplasty. I should first of all congratulate you that you've lived a life up to that age without developing heart disease, sir. People are half your age are developing heart diseases nowadays. Second aspect of it, sir, at your age, if there is a weight loss, I wouldn't be worried about your heart. I would be wanting to look for other things. Okay? Because at 70, when you're losing weight, you need to see if there is something else that's going on. So I would really advise you to go to a physician and investigate this further. There are blood tests that we can be done. At your age, there are certain blood tests that we can look at. But a weight loss, and one of the ways to look at it is the way we measure it on our app. If there is more than a 5% change in the body weight over a period of 2 weeks' time, we kind of flag it. It's not right. It's not right to lose that much of weight. And at your age, I wouldn't be looking at the heart. The heart maybe is already fixed. You want an angioplasty done, you may have fixed the heart problem, but I would go down the path to see where this is causing. So you may have to get more investigations done to understand why this weight loss. And I'd like to be more quantified. What is this weight loss? If it's a small fluctuation, it could be because of your water drinking or something like that. But if you're thinking there's significant drop in the weight, please definitely go to a doctor and get it investigated. And not to a cardiologist only. Take the help of the cardiologist and try to get investigated with other physicians that are necessary.
So after you mentioned, doctor, about how breathing can also lead to some kind of a weight loss, we have Madhuri who's asking some ways to actually lose weight.
Okay, so there is no magic pill. Always remember that. The components about weight loss is a combined effort of yourself and a team. Okay, and when I say a team, it is because there are so many things that you might not be able to manage on your own. So you definitely need a team. And when I say a team, it is somebody who looks at your psychological, I would say, resilience. Okay, how resilient of a mind do you have? That's important to measure and understand how to make it more resilient. You need a physical trainer to help you do the right exercise. And when I say exercise, it's not just building muscles or something like that. It is about efficiency, because you are moving the whole day. Okay, you're pushing a chair, you're pushing a table, you're lifting a heavy weight. You need efficiency in muscles all the time. So talk to a physical trainer who could help you with efficiency and not just muscle building. Thirdly, you need to talk to a nutritionist who can look at your personalized diet and give you something that suits you. And fourthly, learn ways to de-stress yourself. Weight gain is one more kind of a outwardly thing that happens because of stress. So the psychological resilience will help, but also try to understand if there is some kind of an imbalance that's going on in your work-related factors. So investigate it further, and then go through this process of thing with a team. Don't try to do it on your own. Very rarely I found people who are that deterministic to get things done on their own. And the age, it also matters on the age. Like I said, take help, and it will definitely there's no magic pill. And don't do things that what has worked for some 10 other guys on YouTube or something like that. It's definitely not going to work for you. I can 100% assure you on that.
I think seeking a professional is the prime most thing.
Most important, yes.
So with that, we have our last question from Garima, who is asking, is stress the only reason for migraine?
Okay, interesting question, Garima. So migraine has, like they say, headache, the whole aspect of headache. There are 26 different reasons, okay? And migraine is one form of a headache. Yes, they call stress headaches. There are people who develop these cluster headaches, which are related to stress. The answer is only within you. There is no generic answer on this. You will have to find out what is your because all migraines classically have a trigger. Okay, and the trigger is something which you have to identify. A good neurologist will tell you this. He'll tell you to keep a log and log yourself when do you get your migraine attack. And if it is being caused by a stressful condition, then seek help to come out of that. Don't try to do it on your own. And please, like I said, don't get married to your analgesics, because sometimes people just take those things. Whenever I get a thing, I'll just say, you're getting married to it, because that is causing other problems. It's causing renal problems, it's causing heart problems, it's causing other problems. So you are like, it's like, to chase away the rat, you've burnt your entire house. So be careful about that. Migraines, there are various factors. There are certain anatomical factors, sometimes something to do with your blood vessels also, so you may have to get that investigated to find out if there are no stress factors, there are no triggering factors, not stress factors, no triggering factors. But identification of the trigger factors is very important. If you can find that, then we can find the solution for it.
All right, I think we might have one last minute to address one more question. We have someone asking that, Doctor, I've undergone CABG in July. I want to know what are the precautions to avoid further blocks in future. And I would want to know whether the weight now is appropriate. It is 69.1 and I am 5 feet 4 inches tall.
Sir, not because I'm running a rehabilitation program. I'm just telling you the evidence is very clear. Anyone undergone a coronary intervention, be it CABG, angioplasty, doing a cardiac rehabilitation is the only proven way to prevent another heart attack or a cardiovascular event. It is considered as class 1A evidence, which means to say it must be done. So please join a cardiac rehabilitation program, and all the things that you are having will be addressed there, because it's a multidisciplinary team that works with you and ensures that you are making that your heart better, and you're not going to be having another episode again. I don't have any other answer on that, because cardiac rehabilitation is the only proven answer for it. So please join a rehabilitation program. If your doctor has not suggested that to you, please find out where you can get it and join it. I'm not here to sell Newman here. I'm just trying to tell you that, and that's one of the reasons why we started it also. But that's the only advice I'd like to give you.
Wonderful. With that, we come to the end of the Q&A session. Thank you, Dr. Alben, for giving us such a great presentation and a webinar. It was a very interactive session, and I am really glad with the kind of questions that everyone has brought up today in our webinar, and probably helped doctor as well as everyone else attending the webinar get more insights and enable more information for everyone. So thank you so much once again to everyone who's still on call and attending the session. Please do visit and register yourself on Newman Health. It's an amazing platform. You will definitely be benefited a lot. You can reach out to Dr. Alben anytime and address your queries, concerns, and consult him for your issues. And we look forward to having you back again on Onsurity's Wellness Wednesdays, every Wednesday, 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock. And thank you so much once again, Doctor, for taking out time and, giving your precious and valuable inputs from years of experience. I think all of us were really waiting for such sessions to happen. And every Wednesday, it's a great pleasure to have doctors like you come and talk about important things that really need to be addressed. And it's great how we have age spectrum from 22 to 70 asking different questions on this particular subject, which shows how accurate your message was, and actually goes on to say what Onsurity is trying to do and help all the employees across the globe today. So thank you so much once again, and really looking forward to having you once again back.
Thank you, Abhishek, and have a wonderful week ahead, and bye to everyone.
Thank you so much.